Hello and welcome to the International Labour Organisation's Work for Youth event here in Bangkok. My name is Della Rani. Today we're going to look at the issue of youth unemployment in Asia and the Pacific. Joining me now to talk more about this, Ms. Tanya Toiloa. She is the Secretary of the Samoa Workers' Congress. Mr. Matthew Rendell, he is the Secretary General of the Cambodian Federation of Employers. And Ms. Ama Karisma Satumba, or Chacha, she is the Director of the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns from the Ministry of Labour in the Philippines. Hi everyone, welcome. Hello. I also want to draw your attention to the empty chair. That chair is there for a purpose. We will be inviting people from the audience to come and join us at any point. According to the ILO report, youth unemployment in Samoa is reported at about 26% for young women and 20% for young men. Those are huge numbers. I mean, we're talking about nearly a quarter of the population. As somebody that represents workers, why is this happening? Why are there so many unemployed youth?
I think in Samoa, it's just in terms of your skills or your qualifications. I think in Samoa, if you have no vocational training or no formal tertiary education, I think that's where you'll have difficulty getting a job.
So it comes down to education?
So far.
Would you guys agree with that? Is that the same problem in your countries, in Cambodia?
Education is an interesting issue. We have a sort of the opposite problem to Tanya in that we have a proliferation of universities, and there's an awful lot of Cambodian youth who have gotten degrees in the professions. The problem is it's the quality and the relevance of the skills they're acquiring. So whereas we've got numerous people in the professions, what we need is trades and technical skills, and they're not going and learning those skills. So our problem isn't so much education, more so the relevance of the education that they're getting now.
And it comes back to this idea of there being a skills gap, that people
Correct.
are trained, but that training and skills aren't necessarily matching the jobs
Correct,
that
yes,
are
the skills
available.
mismatch, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, just like what Matthew said, we have that same situation in the Philippines. There is a jobs and skills mismatch. So there is a high number of graduates, but they don't get jobs because their skills do not match what is required by the industry. For example, we have identified key employment generators, but we cannot find suitable graduates for these industries.
But then how do you fill this skills gap? I mean, whose responsibility is it? How do you, does it come down to the employers? Is it the employees? How do you fill it?
I think, adding on to what I said earlier, I think we're close to reaching a critical stage that these two countries are in. For example, in Samoa, I think we've gone to the point where, for example, lawyers, you graduate with a law degree and you're having a difficult time looking for a job, whereas in the sciences, there are no marine biologists, there are no... So I think our government is now reacting and directing scholarships towards the fields where there is a lack of qualification, but I think moving forward, we should try to anticipate 5-10 years from now the industries that require some qualification and now direct our children now instead of waiting until there's a saturation of the market.
Do you agree with that? Is the responsibility of the government?
Primarily, the government has to lead, but it has to coordinate and partner with the industry itself, because they would know what the skills are that they need so that they can prompt the academe.
That's where we can help. We can help with the input, have that dialogue and work with, but we can't actually run those programs necessarily, certainly not at the primary and high school level, even the tertiary level. So we do have the universities in place. What we need is probably more technical training colleges. But we also need the youth of Cambodia, the perception needs to change. They need to see that the technical training colleges are a place to go, a worthy place to go to get valued employment.
That's a really interesting point because you sort of talked about this perception of going to university, getting a particular degree, and it seems to be a cultural thing, right? I mean, across Asia Pacific, there might be a notion that when you graduate or if you go to university, you must be a lawyer or a doctor or do something in business, but not necessarily get the trade and the skills required. Would you agree? Is that also the trends in your countries?
That is what we call the diploma mentality. So everyone has to have a diploma, so for them to be able to land jobs. But now the thrust of the government is to really promote technical and vocational training.
Do employers want diplomas?
They don't bother looking at the CVs or the diplomas. It needs to be a one-on-one interview to try and assess the skill level of that person. So it's actually really diluted the value of diplomas. But that's that doesn't take away from the fact that, yes, we do need the universities, we need those professions, it's the quality.
It is a general sentiment among employers, particularly in our country, that aside from the technical skills and the education and the quality of education, they need soft skills as well, like communication skills, leadership and management skills, and analytical skills.
Does it fall on, the employer then to perhaps provide on-the-job training or of the like?
That happens naturally. I mean, the situation in Cambodia, the biggest sector in Cambodia is the garment sector. And probably, the biggest apprenticeship program in the world is Cambodia's garment sector. I mean, that's where all the training takes place. So that is actually what happens. So it's the only place it happens. So you've got on-the-job training in the companies, in the factories, or in whatever the hotels, the factories, etc. So that is exactly where it's taking place. Apprenticeship programs, of course, would be good. To put in place apprenticeship programs that are regulated, to get it working in a more uniform, consistent manner across all sectors. Realistically, you want to end up with a quality job, but to consider vocational training. Right now, I think that message isn't getting into where the demand for that is going to be, which is in the high schools right now. So we need an awareness raising program, so to speak, in the schools to tell them this is an avenue that's probably more realistic and more apt for you is vocational training. Right now, I think that message just isn't getting across. So they know about university, or that's it.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name's Sava and I'm from UNESCO and I'm the HIV Young Key Population Support Officer.
We were talking earlier about, a lot of young people going for degrees that might not necessarily result in jobs, as opposed to vocational training, which would seem more practical because there are jobs in that department. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really difficult balance because, young people, they're passionate about certain themes. So maybe they are passionate to be a doctor or a lawyer. So I think it's a really difficult balance for them to be able to contribute in a meaningful way where they can use their passion and their skills and their qualities, but then at the same time to meet the realistic demands of the job market.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Marco Roncarati, working for United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. We have a lot of these countries getting older. What can be done to improve the intergenerational relationships? Because I think a lot of younger people fear that they don't have the same deals that older people have had, and it may create tension. So what could be done to maybe reduce that tension, or even to turn into a win-win situation?
In either imparting knowledge or skills, or is there an opportunity for that intergenerational collaboration? Or
I think there is in terms of mentoring. I found that a lot of the valuable advice I get in terms of progressing my career is from people much older than me. And I think I'm only fortunate because I've come into contact with those people. But had I not, I would have missed out on a lot of valuable knowledge. So perhaps some kind of structured mentoring in place that will pass on that knowledge to younger people.
hi.
Hello there, I'm Priyadarshini and I'm currently doing an internship with the ILO. I believe education needs to be more practical in the sense that it needs to equip us with some of the most basic skills and something that we actually sort of face as a rude shock later on after our master's or probably a university degree.
I guess I want to sort of end it on a bit of a high note. What advice would all of you guys have for the young people that might be watching this show? What would you like to tell them? What can they do if they're about to graduate, if they're about to make that transition? What should they do? Let's start with you.
I think they need to see beyond what is the norm there in terms of perceptions. I mean, really try and identify for yourself what is a good, realistic way forward, and then pursue that.
I'd just like to remind the young people that not only formal education is important, but also life skills, like especially the soft skills that are needed by the employers. As I said, analytical skills, communication, management skills that they can get from other sources of learning aside from the school.
Until someone is doing that research for you, you have to do it yourself. Find out where there's a niche, where there's a gap, and then do that. Like what Matthew said, you have to be practical about it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much for your time today. Thank you.